Welcome to Wedding Talk 411. Let's get into wedding etiquette, all the do's and don'ts of weddings. I'm Denise. I'm your host. Grab your coffee or your wine and let's go, queens. I am here with my good friend and probably one of my favorite people on this earth. It's Kelly Ginn of Kelly Ginn Photography. They're based in Memphis. And boy, oh boy, do I have some questions for you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're thrilled to death. First of all, tell me about Kelly Ginn Photography, because you're Kelly Ginn, but there's more to the show.
Yeah. So when I started, I was finishing my degree in art education, and I realized that I did not want to be a teacher. So John and I had just gotten married that October before we started our business officially in 2012. So in 2011, I was like, look, I don't think I want to do this. And so he was like, okay, well, graduate and like take 6 months to figure out what you want to do.
Good idea.
And he was like, if you can't find what you want to do, then you need to go back to school and like get, your master's or a degree in something that you're going to want to do. Well, I did not want to go back to school and I did not want to be a teacher. So I was like, look, I'm going to make this work. And the first wedding that we did was a sorority sister whose photographer just kind of like fell off the face of the earth and she just could not reach him anymore. Yeah. So I think I charged her $150, which
my gosh,
paid for the like memory cards for my camera. And that year we did 3 weddings. And then the following year we did 35. And
wow.
It just snowballed from there. And the reason I named it after me was because I honestly thought it was just going to be me. John had his own job. John got his degree and master's in finance. And so I truly thought like it would just be me. And now, 11 years later, it's so much more than that. It's less of me and more of John and Maddie. And I couldn't do any of it without them.
Hey, it takes a village.
It really does. Thank God I have both of them.
And y'all are y'all just click so much because you and Maddie have been friends for many years.
Yeah. So my parents are her like legal godparents, which she's of age now. So I don't know that's anything, but like I met her the day she was born. So. And
you met John. Y'all fell in love in
high school. We've known each other since middle school. So yes,
this is a love story and it's a fabulous one. And how cool that y'all get to, you do love every single weekend.
Yes.
And I adore that. Well, so that's kind of your background. Mm-hmm. Is there a certain person that inspired you or that you kind of just love their work?
Yeah.
And who is it?
Yeah. So I met a photographer that lives in North Carolina who's a best friend of mine named Emily Chittister. And when I found her work, I think I was like 2 or 3 years in. I didn't have any industry friends, none. It was just John and I, especially photographers. I guess I had other wedding vendor friends, but no photographer friends. I found her on Instagram, messaged her, and we became friends. I paid her to come here. She didn't know I could have been a freak, and she just took a leap of faith. She came and visited. We paid her to do photos of John and I learned like a lot about giving direction better from her, like the way she was speaking to John and I to tell us how to pose. So I've just been a fangirl of her work ever since I met her. Yeah. And she's a huge inspiration. Kevin Barre is a huge inspiration, not only with his tangible work, but just the way that he runs his business. Yeah. When 2020 happened, we were having to often bounce back between each other with like what to do. And he's like a sounding board and just great with, how to run he's been doing this for like 25 years. So yeah.
Isn't that good to have somebody that you're not in competition, even though you're in the same field?
Right.
There's enough for everybody.
For sure. And often we will get the same inquiry, Kevin and I, and it never feels like a loss to me anyways when they choose him. Yeah. Like I know at the end of the day, they're in great hands and they didn't go to someone who they're gonna later be disappointed.
Be sorry.
With.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know what? Stuff can be brutal. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that we've all got to work together.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially, I think, in wedding business where there's so many different elements. And boy, people can be catty now.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just so good to have somebody that you can talk to and know, hey, that's not going any further, or I'm getting good information.
Right.
I think it's awesome. Well, now let me ask you, what would you say is your shooting style?
So I think John and I both, like in terms of like post-processing for editing, it's bright and bold.
Yes.
Authentic for sure. But when we say authentic, like obviously you have to pose family portraits. Like those are really important. I wouldn't call that an authentic moment. They're very staged.
Yeah.
But the in-between moments for sure, John and I love. We put a lot of emphasis on the bride and groom portraits. We make that the largest category on the portrait timeline. So yeah, I would say bright and bold.
And it's funny you say that because there is a difference. I've seen photos where it's dark.
Like
it's
moody.
it's moody.
Moody. Yeah, I wouldn't consider our work moody.
I don't either. I don't consider yours that at all.
Yeah.
And I tend to go more to, I'm drawn more to that bold, beautiful colors and the...
Well, and I really appreciate the moody work. Like, I think some of it's fantastic. I'm sure I'm a fangirl of multiple photographers that shoot in that style. But I would like to think that, you know, the couples that hired us 10 years ago, I hope that they still love their photos and that they don't seem like a trend.
Yeah.
So kind of like that timeless approach where they're not going to be embarrassed by like some of the things that the style of their photos,
because some of that stuff passes, but I think just classic, bold, beautiful colors, clear, precise. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, on a wedding day, what's a typical number of hours that y'all shoot?
So minimum usually for us is 10 hours. We do have one package that is 8 hours, but almost if anyone books that, they usually end up adding hours.
Yeah.
I think 10 is the perfect amount of time. That's usually like a 3.5 to 4 hour reception. And then, you know, most of our brides, thank goodness, and bride and grooms do a first look. So we're able to get the bulk of those photos done before the ceremony so that they can go enjoy the party that they paid for, the food that they paid for, and the guests that came to see them.
You know what this brings me to, and I am so obsessed with this, and I know you probably are too, a first look.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I talk to so many couples and I say, now, what about, are you going to do a first look? No, I don't think so. And I think, oh, please, because the day will go so much smoother. Tell me your thought on first look.
Yes, I'm glad that you brought that up. And I feel like I really can speak about first looks like in a non-biased way, because when John and I got married, we weren't wedding photographers. We got married in October before time change, but at the very end, so we were very close to the days getting shorter. We didn't do a first look. And I am so mad at that Kelly Ginn. Like, I'm so mad at her for not doing that. And it wasn't my photographer's fault. She definitely tried to encourage me to do it, and I just wouldn't. So I don't have very many bride and groom photos, which are literally the most important thing, because it was so dark and because she had to do so many photos. If you don't do a first look, you have to do bride and groom with bride's family, bride and groom with groom's family, the full wedding party, and then the bride and groom. And when your guests don't want to wait for you.
No, for one thing, you've missed that golden hour.
For sure. Like, I think I might have like 20 photos with John, and we usually deliver 200 of just the bride and groom.
Wow.
Yeah.
See what a difference?
Yes.
And from my perspective, I see when a couple won't do a first look, I see 200 guests sitting in this venue waiting for an hour and a half.
Yeah, and I bet from your perspective too, they're racking up the bill on the alcohol because they're having to sit and wait, and that's so boring. And you got to drink.
They're bored. They're drunk by the time the bride and groom get in here. And then now you've got such a short time left.
For sure.
And people have traveled and come so far. I wish every couple, bride and groom, if you're listening, please, please, please do a first look.
Yes.
Well, this is crazy, but I know you see it a lot. How do you handle family dynamics? Because I know I see it on my end, but I'm sure you do on your end too.
Yeah.
So you've got divorced parents, you've got a sister that's half crazy, whatever you've got. How do y'all handle that?
A lot of times, thank goodness, our brides will give us a heads up if there is something that's like very out of the ordinary, you know, like, hey, this person is literally schizophrenic, like stay away from her. Or, hey, my mom used to be a photographer, she's probably going to try to give you suggestions, you know. And then almost every wedding we do, there's divorced parents. We're used to
Wow.
that. So what we do is we just ask the couple, are they cordial? Like, is it going to be safe to put them in the same photo, or should we keep them separate? And like, this is dad's side, this is mom's side. So we just ask like up front and in advance.
Hey, communication.
Exactly.
That's it on the front. Because what you don't want is to be right in the middle of something and some big something break out.
Yes. And like we've said like, hey, mom, come over here. And they're like, I'm stepmother, and we're always like, okay, well, I'm never gonna see you again. So like put the blame on me. Don't, like I always tell the bride and groom, just let me take it. I'm never gonna see them again.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, a bride is paying you to kind of run interference.
For sure.
Now there's only so much we can do. I mean, if people are out of control, they're out of control. But they're kind of paying us to run interference, to know ahead of time, hey, I've got this logistic going on here, and I need to be thinking about that ahead of time.
Yeah.
When you meet with a bride, and I assume they put together a list of photos that they want, y'all probably have some kind of even maybe checklist that they go through. How much can they deviate from that? So, because you're on a time frame.
For sure.
So if you've got a list that you're going by, and then mom starts coming up and I want one of this and I want one of that and I want me and so. How much can you deviate from what the bride has told you to do?
So, and this might not be for all photographers, but what John and I do is I won't accept like a tangible list from them just for legal reasons. Like I can't, weddings are uncontrolled events, and I cannot guarantee you that I'm going to get everything on your list. And I feel like by accepting that, you're kind of insinuating that you will. What I will let them do is if they want to have their maid of honor hold a list and stand right next to me and like call out like, okay, now she wants this group. Now she wants this group. Like I will allow that because that's on someone else. But we do have like a list in our head, after doing 500 weddings, like we do, mom with bride, bride with mom, bride with dad, bride with mom and dad, add the siblings, take the siblings away, add the grandparents, I have that.
You've got a routine in your head that you go through.
We do tell them like, if you have, an aunt coming all the way from Australia that you haven't seen in 20 years, like please do tell us that because like that might not be somebody who's going to be around before.
Right.
So we will let them, if there's something like really extreme like that, obviously please tell me like, or like their dad passed away and there's going to be a rose and a photo and the chair up front, like I'm going to see it, but like tell me, like I'm happy to do that.
You don't want to miss anything, but you can only know so much.
Right. And like you said, we are on a time crunch, and sometimes too, like when extended family gets involved before the wedding and they see that the bride and groom are done, they'll be like, hey, can you do some of my family? And I'm like, hey, I'm going to go back with the bride right now. She paid me, but I'll be at the reception. And if you want to get together, like we'll be here all night. Like we can do it then.
Right. Oh, I can easily see people coming to you.
Yeah.
And can you get my family real quick?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I can see how that could get out of hand
and I just
real
tell them at
quick.
the reception. I'm happy to do it at the reception.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and bottom line, the bride and groom, they paid for this.
Exactly. And they don't want me taking those photos. They want me to go be helpful or take photos of them saying a prayer before the ceremony or popping a bottle of champagne. Like I'm on their dime, not the extended family. Yeah.
And not everybody sees that.
Right.
A guest,
No, they don't.
They're not, you would think that would just be a given.
Yes. Oh, wedding guest. I could write a whole book on things that they do.
I could too. Matter of fact, I'm going to write a book.
Yeah, you need to get on that.
A book is coming. Now, I'm curious about this because I love black and white. Not all of it, but sometimes I just think, wow, they captured it right there. Is that something you switch back and forth between black and white and color? Is that film? Is it digital?
So
how's that work?
For us, like we just shoot digital with DSLR cameras. And so that would be like a post-processing editing choice that we make, just a preference. I feel like John and I and Maddie as well, we do try to give, like if these 3 photos are in color and this one looks super similar, we'll throw that one in black and white. And then a bride and groom can always like, email me and say, hey, I got this one in black and white, but I would really love it in color. If it's just a few, like we're happy to change it. A lot of times too, black and white, if I'm trying to convey something moody or like really sentimental or like up close of their hands with the ring, like sometimes it's just like an aesthetic that is a preference.
Just fits better. Yeah. It just fits better. How often because I see all of these, they're everywhere on social media, where he's proposing.
Right, the proposal.
Yes. How often do you get contacted by the groom to come and shoot a proposal?
So I feel like we get those inquiries often, and I usually send them to Maddie. So it kind of like starts with her.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of those couples do at least end up inquiring with us, and it just is a matter of the availability, if they choose a date that I'm open. But Maddie loves doing those. I think they're great. I wish that when John and I got engaged, like that I had a photographer there, if only I knew what I was going to be doing later in life. But,
because, so many couples, well, and let's face it, guys don't think ahead like girls do.
Right.
So, if she doesn't know he's going to ask, because if she knew he was going to ask her that night, she would have somebody there.
Yeah, I would go as far to say that the majority of the grooms that contact me were put up to contacting me or have heard enough about they're like, okay, I hear you, Sheila. I'm going to make sure someone's there.
Yeah, we'll have it there and yet be surprised.
Right. And your nails are done and you got your makeup done. But
I love that.
I wish I would have known because I would have done the same thing.
Oh, I would have too. Absolutely. Now, every couple that you book, that's part of the Kelly Ginn group that y'all do. Do you do an engagement photo shoot on every one of them? Is that pretty common?
So I would say the majority of our brides do. Our most common package comes with an engagement session or a wedding album, and that works well for couples that maybe did proposals, so they used one of those as a save the date, or a lot of our Heartwood couples, to be honest, are out of town brides.
Yeah.
So they would use the wedding album instead of an engagement session.
Yeah.
They did their engagement session wherever they lived.
Right.
But for the majority of the brides who are from here and are getting married here, they use the engagement session. And that's really great because I feel like they get to know John and I, which is helpful for them so that on the wedding day, they're not like, wow, she's a lot, or wow, they're bossy, or, they're just like, oh, it's just Kelly and John. We're just hanging out again.
Yes. And that's something I want to ask you because I know y'all and you all do so many of my couples, but y'all are everywhere. And it seems like you're already friends with these people, all of them. How do you get such a good rapport with these couples before you even get there and get everything started?
So I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that John and I are so obnoxious online. We haven't updated our YouTube in forever, and we really need to do that, especially considering we have Jack now. But we put ourselves out there so that people kind of know what you're getting into. If you're someone who's super shy and reserved and you would just, prefer that your vendors around you be the same way, we probably aren't going to be your cup of tea. Yeah. But if you lighthearted, just John has been telling dad jokes beyond being a dad. If you like that kind of silly but fun and lighthearted energy. Yes. I feel like all of our couples are high energy couples.
Yeah.
I feel like that we do a good job of matching with our couples because they're so easily able to access most of our life. A lot of our couples will say, how's Luna doing? Or, Tebow before he passed away. They just know everything about us, and they chose.
Well, social media is so much a part of everything.
It is.
And plus, y'all are of that age.
Right.
Where you're still in that age group of all these couples that are getting married. And so you're right. I mean, I follow people that I have never met these people.
Right, and you feel like you know
yet I feel like I know them.
For sure,
I'll even watch it and think, now she's about to do so-and-so, or here comes her kid, or whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking of kids, you have a new baby.
I do. Yeah, I can kind of hear him. Have you heard him down there?
I heard him a little, but I love it.
Yeah.
Tell me about Jack.
Oh, he's literally the love of our life. John and I have been married this year will be 12 years, and we spent the first 10 just not knowing if we wanted to have kids.
Yeah.
And now I don't remember what I was doing before him.
No.
At all. And so he's just the best. I'm so glad to be a boy mom.
Oh,
you know how
man.
that is.
Yes, I am. I have only boys. They're in their 40s now, but I will tell you, there's nothing better.
You're right.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Speaking of kids, how hard is it
oh gosh
to photograph kids?
Yeah, so this is funny, but not funny. I think a large part of why John and I didn't know if we wanted kids was because of kids at weddings.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I know that's terrible because if someone in
I can see it.
If someone in my family got married today, Jack would be in the wedding, and like that's what is happening. But like flower girls, ring bearers, etc., or just kids, guests at the wedding, it's difficult and
it's hard,
especially for some reason. Like the flower girls' parents are always like, "Did you get a good one? Did you get a good one?" And I'm like, "Well, they're crying." So like, no, like in the photo they're crying, and then it's never the bride and groom that are like, they see it. They're like, "Well, you get what you get,"
Yeah.
So it can be difficult. I've found that since having Jack, I'm so much more patient, and I totally get like they're the boss. Like the kids are the boss. They're just having a meltdown. They're having a moment.
Yeah.
Let's circle back. If they don't want to be in the photo, then they don't want to be in the photo. You know?
And I think that's part of it. I've done a video on the fact if you get to the rehearsal and it just is not going to work. And you can tell it's not going to work, then don't even do it.
Yeah. Don't force it. And don't it's what I've noticed that you can sense the awkwardness even from the parent. Like when the little boy won't walk down the aisle and then the lady, like the mom has to like hold his hand and she's wearing heels and her dress is short and she's like bent over. Like you can just tell, like, just don't make him walk down.
No, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Because the guests don't even think anything about that.
Yeah.
So, that would be my advice to a bride. If you've got, and for one thing, don't go too young on them.
Right.
But if you just have somebody, you've got to have them because that's the niece, the cousin, whatever.
Just have them in photos and
there you go.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Now, so many people are putting their dog. And I love it.
So do I.
I love it because, the dog sometimes steals the show.
Yeah.
But how hard is it dealing with an animal like that?
I just feel like John and I are such dog people that, like, I don't know. We haven't ever really had too much of an issue. We do always say, like, make sure you have somebody. A lot of brides bring them to the engagement session, which is great. I think a lot of them are like, okay, can I just get some? And then we won't bring them to the wedding.
That's a good idea.
It is. At least you get some that way. But, I feel like in any photo with a dog in it is going to get more likes than without a dog.
You're right.
People are dog people. So I totally get that couples want, their dog to be a part of their wedding day, as long as they have realistic expectations that, like, the dog might not be looking at the camera in the photos or,
Well, they have, they've seen these perfect photos of little Fifi doing this or that, and they expect their dog to do it. It may happen, it may not.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't take off running or bite somebody.
Or like you said, the dog with the rings.
The dog with the rings. Do not tie the rings on the dog. And it's crazy because, people think, how goofy to even say, hey, we've seen it, or we wouldn't even talk about it.
Right. We wouldn't know.
We would not know. So normally there's two photographers. So one with the bride, one with the groom. Tell me how that works, and how would it be different if you only had one photographer?
Right. Well, we always have two, and I'm sure there's wonderful, talented photographers out there who can do it by themselves, and that's great. They're probably less expensive if there's one.
Yeah.
So typically it's John and I, and then when I went on maternity leave, it was Maddie and John. And then I think moving forward with 2024 and beyond, it'll be Maddie and I. So still always two. I just think that's really important to have two perspectives, and also just like you said, like someone to be with the groom, someone to be with the bride.
Yeah.
And we love venues like yours, Cedar and Heartwood, where everything's on one location, because sometimes the groom will be getting ready downtown in a hotel and the bride is at her house in Germantown.
Gosh, how do you handle that?
Typically we'll just stage the groom getting ready, just because guys, and you know how they are, they don't really do much. There's nothing cute like the pajama photo that the brides do, or like popping champagne and
you're mainly
hair and makeup,
straightening his tie,
they're watching
or
TV
reading a note
and drinking Miller Lite until the last minute. So
their last thought is, is my hair just right?
We just kind of like put them in good light and stage it, and then in 10 years they're never going to remember that was staged.
Right. But you know what? That brings up the fact, if a couple can do everything in one location,
Oh my gosh.
that is the way to go.
100%. In fact, I think John and I both have talked about moving forward, like that is really only what we're going to be interested in. I just feel like everybody gets the best version of us when we're safe. You know, our car's parked. All of my equipment I can go to. It's not in a parking garage somewhere that I can't really get to. I'm not having to wait for transportation, a bus that's going to make us late to the ceremony or the reception. If you can find a venue that does everything like ceremony and reception all in one location, especially with a great rain backup plan like you guys have, splurge on it. Like your life will be easier. You're not going to have to waste more money on like a transportation bus and worry about.
I cannot imagine, because I've been to weddings like where the wedding was maybe at a church and then I had to get downtown to the reception.
Right.
And then the parking lot that they have prepared for us is full. And now I'm driving around 45 minutes trying to find a parking place. Right. How in the world that would throw your whole timeline off?
It does. And it's crazy because John would be driving and I would have to jump out and go, you know, photograph the room set up before everyone gets there. And then he's parking and like, hopefully he's safe walking with more equipment. You know, it's just, it's a lot. And I think a lot of times brides think that it's going to be easier than it really is. And anytime there's transportation, I always tell them, you might route it and you might think it's going to take 12 minutes, but it's going to take 45 minimum. Yeah,
exactly. And to put that extra stress on you're already a stressful day.
Yes.
Brides, don't do that. If you can avoid it, don't do that.
Yes.
Which is more miserable to shoot? The hottest summer day or the coldest winter day?
I'm sure that
I hate them both.
I'm sure that I'm the minority in this, but I would 1,000% rather be hot than cold.
Yeah, me too. I can't stand it.
I can put my hair up and I can work with the heat and bring an outfit change. But when I'm cold, I just feel like I shut down and I'm not even creative.
I do too. I can't think straight.
I know.
When I'm freezing to death.
And you know, like either way, like we try to make sure couples are realistic, you know, when it's snowing or like it's 22 degrees out, we give them the option, like, are you still fine with going out? And then they're like, yes, you know, of course. Or when it's 100 degrees and they're like, my hair's falling. And we're like, yeah, you did pick July, but like, come on, girl, let's run through this and we can go back upstairs and touch it up. You know? Yeah.
You just got to deal with what you've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You've got to. And because it may be a perfect temperature, but pouring rain.
Right. And then you're going to have to deal with the backup option and hope and pray that your venue has one.
Oh, absolutely. Another reason. Choose a venue with a backup plan. How often do y'all get called back a year, 2 years later for a maternity shoot or a newborn shoot?
Yes, I say this all the time, but like nothing makes my heart happier than when Maddie gets to photograph a KGP couple. Like it just seems so full circle. Like I just feel so proud and so happy that
I do too.
They obviously had a good enough experience to want that again with their new milestone, whether it be, you know, they got a dog or that they're about to move, they're pregnant, bought a house, you know, just family photos, anniversary.
It's part of what I love about this job.
For sure.
Because I see it. I ran into a couple not too long ago because we've been doing weddings here at Heartwood 14 years. And so I ran into a couple at the Mexican restaurant and I recognized them immediately because they just have that gorgeous, they're both beautiful, the husband and the wife. And they had 3 children.
Oh, wow. Isn't that fun?
And they had like a 9-year-old little Joe and then 4-year-old. And then they had a baby in the high chair. And I thought, I feel like I'm part of the family.
Exactly. Yeah. Like John and I are always like the biggest cheerleaders even if it's just you being excited about picking the paint color for your house that you're building. We're just like, yes, like we stick with them and they do. I feel like a part of their family, even though their wedding day is over.
And they feel that way about y'all too.
I love that. I hope they do.
They do. I promise you they do. How often, because I see it from the sidelines and I think, oh, get out of the way. How often does a guest with all their crazy iPhones get in the way and screw up photos? Because they all think they need to get up there and take a photo.
Yeah. I, just as recent as last weekend, to be honest, there's just, it's always an older person. And I know that they don't have the intentions. They don't know that they're being obtrusive. But I think what would be most helpful to avoid that, just so nobody feels awkward, because it is awkward for me to have to say, please scoot over.
It's hard on you to have to correct, especially an older person.
Yes, because then they think you're being rude and you're really just trying to do what you were paid to do. Is if you can just have some sort of sign that says like unplugged wedding, or have your minister just say,
yes,
there's professionals here with lots of cameras and you're definitely, everything's going to be documented. Please put your phones down.
Yeah. We'll share all this with you later.
You can get anything you want from the bride and groom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I see it, and I think at the time when I see somebody and they're right in the middle of the whole thing, and I think they just messed up that whole beautiful photo.
And you know, the bride sees it like walking down the aisle going like, what is she doing? Like, what is she doing? And that's probably one of their mom's friends that they don't even care to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And then they screw up the whole photo.
Yeah.
How important is it that a couple, when they're looking for a photographer, because not everybody is upfront as y'all are, and I don't know how they even come up with their photos for brides to see, but how important is it that a bride asks to see a full gallery?
Yeah, so John and I really put a lot of emphasis on this, and when our couples inquire with us, they get a minimum of 3 full galleries, and with ours, they're preloaded, but I try to show like a church wedding. I think one of them is a Cedar Hall wedding, and then one might be an Ansdell wedding, just so they can truly see totally different venues, totally different dynamics. I think anybody can put together a curated Instagram feed that shows the best of the best, but like, let me see a church when it rained with bad lighting. How are you going to handle the pressure in that event? You know what I mean? Like, not just, you know, the best day possible where it was sunny and 70 and, you know, a cool breeze that day at a mansion wedding. You know what I mean? Like, let me see
Show me real what really went on.
Right.
Yeah, because you can't make that stuff up. And I think a lot of times probably a photographer may show them just the cream of the crop.
Right, just the very best work. And I think, too, it's totally fair for couples to say, have you shot at Hartwood Hall before? Can I see some Hartwood Hall galleries? And then send, like, they can have whatever you want. I'm happy to send you, unless a couple signed like an NDA where like you're not allowed to post or share their photos. Anybody can see any galleries of mine. Full galleries.
Full gallery. And I think that's just important.
Me too.
Are there certain colors of dresses and florals that just photograph better than others?
Something that Maddie and I both have talked about is a color that doesn't photograph well is red.
Really?
It's always going to look more orange.
Okay.
Like I don't know if it's just the
There's
preset
so many
that
shades of red.
Yes. It's just, I think a lot of our photos have like a warmer tint to them. And so red it's just not going to look as red as what it is in person.
Right. So like red bridesmaids dresses, red flowers. They're probably beautiful in person, but they may not
it's just gonna
photograph
look
as well.
slightly different. Yeah.
And to me, I tell you, one of my favorite looks, and I don't know how it photographs, but is all the shades of like blush.
I do. I like
all the way from almost white, but not quite white, blush down to almost a peachy color.
Yeah. I like when the bridesmaids like kind of mix with those colors, you know? Yeah.
And you see that more and more where it's not, everybody's not in the exact same gown.
Not super uniform. Yeah.
And brides, they've got such good instincts on their own.
Totally.
They can come up with really great looks.
I agree.
Now, how far out does a bride need to book her photographer? That probably needs to be one of the first things, I would think.
We try really hard not to take anyone's, contract and retainer payment and if they don't have their venue booked. And what we, and some of them will say, well, I'm going to book, the cadre or whatever. Yeah. Well, you don't have a date until you have a venue.
That's right.
So book the venue first and then go to your photographer. Those are 2 vendors that can only do 1 a day.
Yeah.
And so I would say a year minimum, a year out is what, and then that could be maybe like the fall goes first. Yeah. So I would say like year and a half. If you're trying to get married in October, like I already have October weddings for 2024.
Yeah, we do too. I think we're almost out of dates for that.
Those are the first to go.
Yes. Yeah. And it's just critical, like you say, a cake person can do 5 cakes for one wedding.
Or some makeup artists can do multiple florists.
A florist. Yeah. But people like a photographer, the venue for sure.
Right, the venue for sure.
The DJ.
Yep.
Now,
Usually
some
they-
DJ companies have multiple
team,
DJs,
yeah.
but sometimes it's just one guy.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, you got to get your timeline down of the ones that are most critical. And I think photographers definitely
For sure.
one of them.
Same with video as well.
Yeah,
Video.
I agree.
Mhm.
Absolutely. How a lot of couples now have a wedding website.
Mhm.
How important do you think that is for a couple to have either a wedding website or a hashtag?
Yeah. I think hashtags are kind of just like for fun. And I do like seeing like the creative names, like with our last name, Ginn, like I could think of 1,000 things like
Yeah.
again and again, or, like
Yeah.
something fun. And I think it kind of encourages your guests to get involved so that you can later go back through that hashtag. So that's a lot of fun. Wedding websites are really helpful though
Yeah,
for
they are.
the guest, especially if
Out-of-towners.
your guests are, most of them are out of town. John and I are going to a wedding in Canada in May, and she has a wedding website. And
Yeah.
I'm like, thank goodness, because I don't know what's
You
in
wouldn't even
Vancouver.
know where to begin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can give them hotel information. It can
Things
give
to do,
them things
restaurants.
to do.
And also, I think wedding guests like to go through, like, usually the couple will post engagement photos and you
Yeah.
can, like, look and just get excited
Little
with them.
backstory.
Mhm. Yeah, their love story,
How they met.
where they're registered.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so copyrights to all these photos, because I bet you run into this, but can a bride demand that you don't use her photos for advertising? Because I would think you own the copyright to
For
it.
sure. So, I mean, you can always sign an NDA, and
Yeah.
then that basically means the second I turn them over to you, I no longer even have them on file. They're yours.
Yeah.
We've had couples inquire about that, but when we tell them the price, it's just not worth it. Like, you found me because of the photos that I've posted.
Yeah.
So that's how other brides would find me, which
Right.
is why you kind of have to put a price tag on the NDA.
Yeah.
I know there have been some photographer friends of mine who have not been able to share photos because it was, maybe like a B-list celebrity who hired them and they don't want them out there. So they happily paid the NDA fee.
Yeah. But there's a fee attached
There's
to
a
that.
fee attached to
Yeah.
it. And I think I would say I'd feel comfortable saying most photographers would charge a fee because you can't promote your work.
Yeah. And that's one thing. You have to be able to show your work in order for other brides
Right.
to see you.
Right. And it's just like I said, like, how did that bride find you from
Right.
your work?
And
Yeah.
really, a bride shouldn't be nervous about that because she's never seen you post anything.
Right. That she didn't like, or I wouldn't be here today.
That's
yeah.
right.
Shooting
So
your wedding. Yeah.
If she'll just think that through, she'll be okay with
Yeah.
it. Now, I love this, but I haven't seen a bride do it, but I would love to see it. Have you ever photographed trash the dress, or even like just in the swimming pool?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something crazy with the dress?
No, I haven't, but I will say, like, to plug Kevin Barre again, I tried to hire Kevin for our wedding almost 12 years ago, and he was booked as he always is. And one of the reasons why is because he had a bride and a lake, and she had Converse on, like, floating up, and I just thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen.
I think I've seen that
I'm
photo
pretty sure
of his.
she might have been one of your brides that he did later. Like she came back to trash the dress, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So.
I think so too, because
Yeah.
I mean, I know the dress is sentimental,
Right.
but hopefully you're never going to wear that
Yeah.
dress again.
Yeah.
And the chances that your daughter
Mhm.
someday
Right.
will want that dress, but there's something just fun about that.
Right. Yeah.
But of course, I understand too. It's hard to imagine jumping in a lake in thousands of dollars worth of dress.
Yeah.
but
I don't know that I could do it, but I would totally photograph one.
I
if
bet
somebody
you would.
wanted me to, I would totally
somebody
do
think
it.
about doing
Yeah.
that. Now, y'all were photographers in San Francisco,
Mhm. Yeah.
which I love San Francisco and Napa
So awesome.
Valley, and I know you miss it terribly.
I do.
How different was San Francisco doing weddings and photographing weddings than here in the South?
Yeah. So the South, everything is a big deal. Everything takes a lot of time. Everything is an ordeal and an event and like
Yeah.
an experience. The weddings that we did in San Francisco were quick and easy. And
Yeah.
it was just like a pop-up ceremony and then a dinner for 20 people. And that was just
Wow.
it. Yeah.
You know, that I didn't think of it before, but in the South, we go big or we go home.
We do. And they think we're wild out there.
Oh, I bet they do.
Yes. And anytime John and I were in an Uber or anything, they would be like, are y'all from Texas? Like, I guess our accent. So Yeah. The South, I just feel like the South just does it right.
I think so too.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because my friend and I were in an elevator in Chicago, and she's from Mississippi. And I mean, she's really got that accent. And we're in a full elevator, and we're just chatting, you know, busy chatting. And all of a sudden I notice it's quiet in the elevator because now they're listening
They
at our accent.
your accent. Yeah.
Yes. And somebody said, "Say that again." And I thought, are they making fun of us? And then I thought, no,
They
like our Southern accent.
It's
so,
like the girls from Ripley, Tennessee.
yeah.
Yeah. When they talk, I'm like, keep talking. I love what you're saying.
I love what you're saying. Hey, we carry this badge of honor being from the South.
You're right.
Now, what's more fun to shoot, indoor or outdoor? Or maybe what's harder to shoot, indoor or outdoor?
You can control lighting indoor for sure. So like in terms of like, it might be easier editing wise with complete control.
Yeah.
But like my preference is always going to be outside. Like, please go outside with me. Like, let's make it work. Your venues, Cedar and Hartwood, both have tons of shade, which is so important. There's lots
shade is important.
Shade is so important because it's consistent lighting. You don't want, you know, some to be in the light, some to be in the
their face to be in the sun.
It makes editing really hard. And I mean, you can even feel it like yourself. You're like, this can't be pretty because like this whole eye is like blown out. I can feel the sun on me. So I'm always going to pick outside.
Yeah. And I think probably some brides maybe are afraid of that because they're afraid it's too hot, my hair, this, but go for
Just
it.
do it.
Just do it.
You
Absolutely.
can touch up later.
Absolutely. That's what you got the makeup people there for. Now, your team always looks fabulous, by the way.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Y'all are always look top notch. But what are your thoughts on vendors' clothing on a wedding day, and especially the photographer?
Right.
Because they are up in the front. And the reason I asked this, several years ago, I had a photographer, and he followed the bride down the aisle with a baseball hat turned backwards, and you won't believe this.
Jeans.
A cigarette.
Oh, no.
Yes,
you saw it?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
he lit a cigarette right before he followed the bride down. Of course, how can I stop anything at this point?
Right,
It's done.
See, to me, that screams that he was probably anxious because he probably doesn't do a lot of weddings. So the cigarette,
There
you
you
know what
go.
I'm saying? Like,
And he's a smoker, and they do it without it. He did it without him thinking. You know, just
like chapstick or something.
Chapstick.
Yeah.
But can you imagine
No, that's
your photographer?
really embarrassing. Wow. So we just try to wear all black. Like this would be an example. So maybe not all black, but like I look clean. I look like I probably am someone who knows what's going on. And
we're you kind of fade into the background.
Exactly. We're in people's face. I have to stand up during the ceremony. I love rainbow, you know that, like in bright colors, but like that's just, there's a time and a place. And I don't necessarily think that you have to wear black. I've worked with lots of, you know, videographers who just wear like neutrals, just something that's not like gonna make you stand out. Like it's just not your day to stand out.
Right. It's not about you this day. And you want to just, it's like my wait staff, my bartenders,
all black.
My wedding coordinators, they're always in all black.
Yeah.
Number one, I just think it's very professional.
I agree.
And number two, they fade into the background.
Which is exactly what you want.
I want you to have your table cleared of all the china and not even know anybody cleared it.
Right. Exactly.
Because they just came stealth.
Yeah.
And did their thing.
Yeah. And I don't want to distract the guests or the family during the ceremony, even though I do have to move around.
Right.
But at least
you want to be as...
Yeah, I don't want to be an eyesore.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What if you have a bride that's a bridezilla or a momzilla? I have had them, and I'm going to tell you, it's hard.
Yeah, I feel like you've just done more weddings, so like you're going to run into it more than me. You've been doing it longer, and y'all do like 3 a weekend. And I can count on like less than one hand a bridezilla for us. Like, I just feel like they don't book us if they don't feel like we're going to mesh well or if we're going to butt heads. But I've definitely seen it with the mother of the grooms. I've seen it. and the mother of the brides. It's more, I don't know why it's always the mother of the groom, and that's not even the person who paid, but that's one reason John and I like have the bride sign the contract. It doesn't matter who's paying.
Right.
I need to make sure that I'm making her happy, the client happy. If the mom's telling me to do one thing and the mom signed the contract, then I'm going to be obligated to do what the mom's telling me to do. And so I just, you know, I'll look at the bride and I'll go, hey, are you wanting to do this right now? You know, kind of like give them a look, and they'll just like,
give them an out.
Yeah, I do. I tell them like, grab your ear, just like go like this. And I'll be like, hey, I need to change my camera battery. Let's take a break for a second. And then we just won't go back to it. You know what I mean? Like you can, I don't really have bridezillas.
You know, it is always, at least in our case, it typically is more the mother that we have to deal with. And I don't know if it's that she didn't get the wedding she wanted.
Or if they feel entitled because they paid or something.
Or I paid for this.
Yeah.
But so many times I see them trying to go totally against what the bride has told us to do.
Yeah.
And there's where I have a problem.
Yeah. And I bet the parents sign most of your contracts.
They do.
Yeah.
A lot of them. A lot of times I'll hand it to the bride, and the mother will say, wait a minute, we're paying.
Yeah.
And I know right then.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
What
you're walking into.
Yeah. What I'm walking into. But, you know, moms, you had your day.
Yes.
You had your day.
Just let them do what they want.
Let them do. It's going to work out perfectly. Yeah. How often do y'all photograph the rehearsal dinner?
I would say most of those that's something Maddie would do. So still our team. Yes. Yeah. I feel like she does a good bit. If we do 30 or 40 weddings a year, she might do 15 or 20.
So about 50%
50%. And I can for sure tell you that nobody's ever regretted, you know, that service that you usually have your hair and makeup done then. Yeah. It's a whole nother outfit, a whole nother look that you're getting to photograph.
And it's so laid back.
Yeah. And you know what? You can always pass that bill to the groom's parents if you want, and let the mother of the groom that can be her one thing that she can control.
Right. Because mother of the grooms are looking for something that they can be part of.
Yeah.
So maybe she hires y'all to do that as part of her gift to them. Now, this is one thing I see happening, and it drives me nuts, but give me your thoughts. Everybody in the entire group photo. So I've seen it, and it'll kill 30 minutes or more maybe, where they want great Aunt Susie and every cousin and then every cousin's child. And to get all those people up there and get them all situated and smiling at the same time. What are your thoughts on that?
So I usually talk to the bride right before the ceremony about that if I know for a fact we're doing extended family. What I like to tell them is let's only do formal photos of the family that you know you're going to print the photos of. Yeah. So like that giant photo where there's 45 plus people and you're never going to print it. Let's do that super casually at the reception so it doesn't take up all of your time. And if somebody's not there, they're not there. Right. We don't want to spend 30 minutes looking for your cousin who you see every 10 years. Yeah. You know, and that might be something that that family wants. And again, we can do that at the reception. Let's not carve out time right now that you paid for. Like when you're dancing, I can go over on the side and take that photo.
And get that photo. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, do you enjoy a wedding of a huge wedding? Because 400 guests, 14 bridesmaids. Is that easier or more fun, or a wedding of 100 people and 2 or 3 bridesmaids?
I don't really have a preference too much, and I wouldn't even say that one would be easier than the other. The big, huge weddings with lots of people, I feel like the time will pass quicker because there's just so much going on. Yeah. But I do feel like I get to know and talk to the couple more if there's less of that, which is super. I mean, we love our couples. I love that. I feel like we're besties by the end of the day. So really, I'm whatever. I'm totally happy. I think they're sweeter, smaller. Yeah. And just
there's something about that intimate feel.
Personal preference is, to me, I just think that that's super sweet. But I like the big parties too.
Oh, I do too.
I feel like I'm super entertained.
Yeah. Well, the energy.
Is
so high.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, because I know you're like me. You've seen everything in the world. What is something just crazy you've seen, funny you've seen, something you thought, what in the world?
Yeah, I'll stick with funny because I've seen I've seen some not so great things. I know you have too.
Yes, I have.
I just feel like every single wedding, a groomsman or a groomsman, the groom or a boy guest rips his pants at every single reception.
Oh my gosh.
Just, I don't know if they're just not made well or if they're just like busting it out on the dance floor.
You know, they probably order them too tight.
Yeah, maybe. And they're like drinking all the Miller Lights and they're bloated and just like, and it's so funny because I see it every weekend and it is funny. I still laugh, but like the guests are like, did you get a photo of that? Everyone. And I'm like, yes, I see his boxers that have rubber duckies on them. I definitely see it. Yeah.
I love it. I got to tell you something funny about a guy in his britches that you're talking about, because, you know, I have two venues and I'm usually at Heartwood. And so anytime I get a call from Cedar, I know
something's happened.
Something's happened or something's going down, whatever. So I get a call and they said, hey, we got an issue. Okay, what's happening? I'm thinking this, you know, the cake didn't show up, whatever. The father of the bride and the brother of the bride got into a confrontation.
Oh my gosh.
And the daddy's britches got ripped off of him.
Because of a fight?
They fought.
Oh my God.
They fought until the britches were gone.
I have seen a groom and a groomsman fight and a sink be ripped off of a wall.
Oh my gosh.
That was one of my earlier years, and I cried all the way home, and I told John I wasn't doing any more weddings ever.
Well, it's traumatic.
It is, and it's just like, I didn't know people could be like this, but I do know that those are like the minority. They're typically...
Hey, that's a one in a lifetime.
Yeah, but
thank God.
Yes.
Because it's traumatic.
It is.
You know, you see somebody's britches get ripped off, and especially family members.
And in front of people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to write a book one of these days.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Girl, I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and tell me how people can get a hold of you.
I feel like we're most active on Instagram, and our handle is just at KellyGinn22.
And Ginn is Ginn.
Ginn. Yes, looks like Jen with an extra N on it.
Yeah, I called y'all Jen for I don't know how long.
And literally everyone still does, and I just answer to it.
Yeah,
I've
answer
heard
to
Gwen, Gwen,
I
Jen,
love it.
almost everything but Ginn, but it's okay. I'll answer to whatever.
I love you. Well, you feel like another daughter to me, and I don't have a daughter.
Oh,
so
I will be her.
I will be her. It.
That's
you
how
are
you're family to us, and Jack knows you now, so
I love
you're
it.
stuck with us.
Well, let's toast.
Cheers to wedding.
Cheers to Wedding Talk 411 and to Kelly Ginn Photography. Brides, thank you for checking in with us. Until next week, I'm Denise. This is Wedding Talk 411. Happy wedding planning.
Cheers.
Cheers.